Bangladesh, February 7, 2016. The director of the Bangladesh Central Bank got off the elevator on the 9th floor and headed to the back office of the Accounts and Budgeting Department. This was the most restricted part of the building. He was there to deal with a problem that has been a headache in the office within the last few days. The printer wasn't working, and it was kind of a big deal. It was causing a real disruption since the automated printer, which was hooked up to the bank computer's networks, was supposed to work round the clock 24/7, printing out the bank transaction report in real time. However, due to this technical glitch, the printer tray remained empty. A lot of hours of the day was spent trying to fix the issue, and after a great deal of effort, it was finally successful. They were able to restart the printer, and so the backlog of transaction reports started rolling out one by one. It soon became apparent that something wasn't quite right. There were more statements than expected when they took a closer look, like 25 suspicious payment orders, which were ridiculously large sums of money having supposedly been transferred from the Bangladesh Bank's own account to various other accounts in other countries. It's certain that no one from the bank had authorized it, and the SWIFT security system in place was unbreachable. As the director scanned through the suspicious transfer requests, the true scale of the situation started dawning on him. The transfers totaled to almost $1 billion. An absurd amount, a significant chunk of the nation's reserves. Where had they gone? Who was responsible? Panic ensued as the workers scrambled to stop the payment, but it was likely too late. The unfortunate printer malfunction had caused an unfortunate delay in their response. The same Bangladesh had just lost $1 billion. That happened in February 2016, for what led to this moment actually started 9 months earlier. Philippines, May 2015. Over 3,000 kilometers away, a group of men entered the Jupiter Street branch of the RCBC Bank and opened 4 bank accounts where they deposited $500. The men then left, never to return, with their accounts left seemingly abandoned. Back in Bangladesh, the country was becoming one of the fastest growing economies in the world. The central bank was in the capital city named Dhaka, a chaotic city with almost 20 million people. Despite all this rapid growth, it was a nation that could not afford to lose $1 billion of taxpayers' money. Fast forward, January 2016, a month before the incident, an employee at the Bangladesh bank was checking his mail at work. Everything seemed normal, so he went home that night, not realizing it just sparked events that would soon shock the world's banking system. A phishing attack was done on him where he had unconsciously clicked on an infected email that immediately began installing malicious software in the central bank's computer systems. This malware would be the backdoor that allows intruders to enter the network and gain access to the inner workings of the Bangladesh bank. In a remote area, the intruders were able to study the movements of every worker together with their standard operating procedures. A month later, on a Thursday evening, as the bank was shutting down for the weekend, the intruders once again accessed the system, but it was for their last time to perform the heist according to their plan. Within the system, manipulating international money transfers was a big task, but here comes SWIFT. It is a global payment network enabling financial transactions to be sent in a secure and reliable way using military-grade security designed to be unbreachable. SWIFT does not facilitate the transfer of actual funds, but rather it sends trusted payment orders between accounts which the banks can confirm. This is the standard operation in international banking. This is why bank hackers usually focus on stealing the login credentials of individual bank account holders rather than focusing on the banks themselves, but in this case their target was the institution. Using the bank's legitimate SWIFT credentials that they collected from the malware, they were able to take control of the SWIFT terminals as if they were legitimate bank employees. SWIFT is safe and secure, but the banks using them first needed to be responsible for their individual cybersecurity. If the security seems to be lacking, as in the case with many developing nations, SWIFT could actually be used against them. 25 unauthorized transfer requests totaling $951 million were by now being sent via SWIFT to the Federal Reserve Bank of New York. You ask yourself, why New York? Well, it's because the Bangladesh bank owns an account there with billions of dollars on deposits meant for international settlements. The details of the requests from Bangladesh was to transfer the funds from New York to the various accounts set up across Asia. You must be asking yourself, why Asia? But I will get to that soon, so watch till the end. In a few hours, they were done with their transfers. The next day, Friday, New York City, one of the world's biggest financial centers. The Federal Reserve Bank of New York was busy processing Bangladesh's payment orders. Everything was running normal since there were no callers to stop the transfer because SWIFT instructions are legitimate and trusted. Oblivious to the deception, they began processing the request. Sunday morning, the Bangladesh bank employees who are back from the weekend were now trying to fix the printer problem. The automated printer connected to the SWIFT network had not been working in the last days, and the usual printout of real-time transfer confirmation was backlogged. Of course, this was the most unfortunate time for a technical glitch, except it was not really a technical glitch. The hackers were a step ahead in preventing confirmation messages from revealing their heist. They wiped out evidence from the SWIFT database and intentionally crashed the automated printer. By doing so, they had bought something worth more than diamonds, and that is time. Sri Lanka Asian bank account had been deposited $20 million in a Pan-Asia bank account for a company called the Shalika Foundation, which was sent from the Federal Reserve Bank in New York. This was just one of 25 transfers making its way to Asia. Back in Bangladesh, the printer was finally working and they were sorting the paperwork. Panic quickly ensued as they realized 25 payment orders were made totaling almost $1 billion. Immediately they tried to send a stop payment order to the New York Federal Reserve Bank, but it was on a Sunday and there was no one there to respond. By the time New York Federal Reserve staff would return on Monday, it would have surely been too late. Little did they know, they had actually caught a lucky break, because it turned out the automated system in New York had flagged 15 transactions for manual review. By complete lag, one of the receiving companies on the SWIFT order happened to match a blacklisted shipping company that was evading United States sanctions against Iran. Pure coincidence, right? This would prove devastating for the hacker, since $870 million worth of transfers were now blocked. Later, when the staffs took a closer look, they noticed several red flags. The unusually high number of payment instructions, the large transfers to private entities rather than banks. At this point, they had to seek clarification from Bangladesh, and after getting word on their stop orders, the transfers were shut down. It was over, the gig was up. Or was it? 15 of the transactions worth $870 million would never be seen by the hackers, but there were still 10 transactions left. The remaining 101 million, which the Fed automated system failed to flag, had gone through. Where did these 10 transactions end up? The first transfer, Sri Lanka $20 million, which had an account in the Pan-Asia Bank via their routing bank intended for a company called the Shalika Foundation. An observant employee at the Pan-Asia Bank noticed something unusual. $20 million was an unusually large amount for such a small non-governmental organization, not to mention within the country of Sri Lanka. The employee sent the transaction back to Deutsche Bank for verification. Now in Frankfurt, Germany, the payment order, just like in New York, was being reviewed, and just like in New York, there were red flags. One of them was a spelling mistake on the name Foundation as Foundation. The suspicions were soon reaffirmed, and ultimately turned out that this Shalika Foundation was indeed a fake company. The money was then rerouted back to the Bangladesh Bank's New York account. The 4 transaction records having $81 million were not flagged because these 4 were all sent not just to the same country but to the same bank branch. The Jupiter Street branch of the RCBC Bank outside Manila. In the Philippines, 4 accounts were dormant for 9 months with just $500 until a certain cash infusion of $81 million. The sudden burst should have triggered an alert from RCBC, but for whatever reason it slid under the radar. The accounts were later found to be under fictitious identities. From there, half of the money was transferred anonymously, where bitcoins were purchased, then later transferred to various Bitcoin wallets. In order to clear their tracks, a Bitcoin giveaway promotion was started where they took part in giving away a portion of the Bitcoins they owned to crypto enthusiasts who signed up for the giveaway promotion. Amazingly, the giveaway is still active, and with research I have included the sign-up link in the description and comments so you can get a piece of the pie of this organized heist. Just click the link and sign up. Moving on, the money was quickly withdrawn and laundered through casinos. The electronic money transfers are converted to untraceable cash. The Bangladesh Bank did try to stop the transfers, but timing was just not on their side. The stop order was not received by RCBC Bank on the expected Monday because Monday was Chinese holiday. By now you probably noticed how the hackers calculated their moves by using time as their weapon. On Thursday evening, they enter the system at the start of the Bangladesh weekend when the bank is closing. On Friday, the New York Federal Reserve tried to clarify the request with Bangladesh, but no one's there. On Sunday, Bangladesh staff returned from the weekend but can't get through to New York as it was on a weekend in New York. On Monday, the Federal Reserve finally got the orders to stop transfer, but they were unable to contact the Philippines because coincidentally it happened to be the Chinese holiday. On Tuesday, 5 days after the heist, that is when RCBC staff found out about the fraudulent transfers, but by this time it was too late. 2 Chinese men, Ding and Zhao, were eventually found to be responsible for setting up the fake RCBC account in the Philippines, where they turned out to be just the middlemen. They were still a crucial part of the operation, and investigators hoped questioning them would lead to the true culprit. Unfortunately, before the Bangladesh authorities were able to apprehend them, they left the country boarding a flight to Macau, a special administrative region of China where it was then impossible to track them. So with the remaining 4 transfers, the hackers were able to net $81 million. Not quite their intended target, but still enough to be considered the single biggest bank heist in history. Despite the hackers' best efforts at covering their tracks from the bank's systems, cybersecurity experts were still able to analyze the malware. What they found was similarities in the techniques and tools used between the Bangladesh bank heist and many other cyber attacks on financial institutions around the world. This means that these particular hackers were likely responsible for a series of global attacks. This group was known as couldnot, but there was more. As experts dug deeper, they found something even more unexpected: an IP address connecting couldnot to a particular nation-state. For a brief moment, they had a loose nut, and the logs had indicated that the hacker's computer had been accessed at least once from a North Korean IP address. There was also Korean language found embedded in the source code. It's important to know that there might be a high possibility that North Korea was framed, with the hackers leaving behind breadcrumbs in order to mislead investigators, but according to the majority of cybersecurity experts, it is almost certain that North Korea was behind the attacks. It was not just attacks on financial institutions. They were also revealed to be responsible for many cyber-terrorism and cyber-espionage campaigns against the South Korean government and various South Korean infrastructure. Now for couldnot banking exploits like the Bangladesh incident, the attacks were just the start. They had to ensure the money will get to the intended location, and the way they did that was to have the stolen funds moved through places like Macau, which in particular is known to be North Korea's financial point of contact with the outside world. We know that from the 2 Chinese middlemen that's exactly where the Bangladesh funds ended up, and around there it would not have been hard for the money to be wired directly to North Korea. The funds could have gone into advancing their nuclear program, funding the lifestyles of the elite, and stabilizing up their economy. All this quite possibly represents a significant percentage of the country's current GDP. If this is all accurate and North Korea is indeed behind these attacks, the international implications would be profound, especially with the recent developments, as this would be the first known case of a nation-state robbing banks. From these we conclude that anything is possible. They could hack political campaigns like in the Philippines, weapons systems, civilian bank accounts, or even YouTube viewers who have not liked this video and subscribed to the channel. Just kidding. It may seem like something small, but liking and subscribing means the world to me. Kindly do that so we can hit our target of 13,000 subscribers.